Would you also make me a co-host, please?
Yes. Just one second. We played with this co-hosting thing, and I I don't know if Aaron can.
Oh, it's me again?
Yeah, I can't figure out how to, since I'm not the assigned host. Somebody else might be able to tell me more about this, but like how you make someone a co-host. Because right now we're just playing with this like back and forth, making the host.
I made you the host, but I don't see a place where I can do that
Yeah,
with one individual at a time.
I don't either. Does anybody know how to why the co-host isn't popping up as an option? I mean, I can just give it to Dr. Yonke whenever I need to make him a host, but does anybody know how to do that? Like make a co-host?
Well, let's try it. If you go to participants
Mhm.
and you click on me,
Yeah, I have a option for make host, which I'll do right now just to practice. But it doesn't give me an option for co-host. Zoom is so fun, isn't it?
oh yeah, tons of fun.
Tons of fun. If you now that I've made you the host, do you see any options for making someone a co-host?
Let me see. Like a host. I guess it's going to be. It might be the type of account that we're on. I would imagine this is a fairly sophisticated level of account, right?
Oh, it's Aaron's, so it's much more sophisticated than mine.
No, we got the free version, so it's not the level of
Oh, okay.
sophistication is not there.
I bet
That's
that's
it.
it.
Now I have a question about the free version. Is that what we used last time?
Um, because we're in an education setting, we don't have the time constraints that others
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yeah, that's the
Got it.
nice part
Got it. Got
about
it. Got it.
Aaron.
Okay. So I think what I'm going to need is I'll just need to be able to share my screen,
Perfect.
which, let's see, which it appears,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've made.
it appears that I already can do that.
Yep.
So then when it's my turn to roll the PowerPoint, if you would just, well, who shall we have as the host now besides me?
If you make me the host, Dr. Yonke, I can um,
Okay,
kind of get us going, and then you'll see the rollout of people and the ones who are gonna present.
okay, so
Basically, you and me.
you're the host now.
Thank you. I'll share my screen, and that way you all can kind of see the order of events, and we'll get started. Now, do you guys see the agenda? Cool. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And it looks like we're recording. And so I didn't get a chance to tell everybody, but thank you for making the time for this. And welcome to our second session. That's really exciting that we can come together weekly. If we would have spread it out much farther, I don't know if it would have the greatest impact. So I'm so happy. It seems like time flies, right? I mean, to think that we've already on week two, that's just crazy to me how fast time flies. So instead of going over everything, we had the ability to record last week's Zoom sessions. So for those that need to hit up anything that they may have missed, please do so. And before we like dive in, if everyone just wants to get comfortable, take some breaths, align our posture, Dr. Yonke and Rebecca, his wife, would start off with some deep breathing, and I invite you guys to do the same. I learned a lot about just kind of settling the mind. So just take a second here to adjust your posture, kind of clear your mind out of all the fog that may have gave your mind a little fogginess this morning or today, and just feel that opportunity to be in the present. And I think that's pretty powerful. So you'll kind of be able to see here as we get started that there's a few agenda items. We're going to review some of the forms that we have created and want you guys to utilize both in your personal health journey as well as for the students that you are going to be sharing this information with, all of which can and will probably be edited to our liking as we go through this pilot program. So I did send you guys the revised circle. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what I did and how I edited the circle. Here's the circle. I'm not going to go over each one, but we did kind of make this little area where you could fill in a number perhaps of how you feel you are in this area, how you assess how you're doing right now in terms of progress or intention or focus. And I kind of asked you guys last week, we went through the circle and you kind of already know where areas of support are needed. You have probably were able to assess where your strengths are. And that's really powerful to just have that moment of acknowledgement on where you are and how you feel. Is there an area that you're kind of interested in? So as we go through today, we're going to go over rest and movement, which was interestingly some of your guys' strengths. And I think that's really cool because I think Dr. Yonke said it last week really well. We're not here to like tell you what you should do or focus on weaknesses or all the areas where you might need help or support, but we're also really looking at your strengths. And when we talk to kids, I mean, hello, how important is that? And making sure that they feel that they know their strengths, that they share their capabilities with others. And I think that this circle is really, really powerful. So I'll stop sharing the screen. You guys have this updated version and I invite you to save it, assess it, make sure that it's where you would like for it to be, and feel free to edit it as we go along. So the next form that I want you guys, I hope that you had the chance to look at, it'll be the 15 powers. Dr. Yonke, I want to make you the host if you're comfortable now going over those powers.
Yes, and you can do that by just showing the document that has the bulleted list.
Perfect. I'll do that now.
I will extemporate on these points.
Cool. All right, let me kind of make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see this well. Oop. Here we go.
All right. So one of the things that we have said, and Erica just said it, and we'll say it again and again, is that everybody knows what to do. They've heard it and they've denial about it, or they've heard it and they've tried it and haven't succeeded very sufficiently. And however that has occurred, that's what this program is for, is to support people in moving from knowing what to do to actually doing something. And the process that we're developing here in your community is basically derived from a coach training that we have developed at Health Action. That's the name of my my company and my colleagues and so forth. Called the Circle of Life. It's a life coaching program. This CHARM program, the whole concept of health resiliency maximization, is a huge, huge topic. And we know that people with underlying diseases are more at risk for dangerous infections, as well as they are at risk for earlier demise because of the fact that they have those chronic underlying diseases. And so what can we do to help people in our communities, starting with children, to leverage change or to move people towards their aspirations, to remind them of what they know, and then support them in actually taking actions about what they know. And so into the Health Resiliency Maximization Program, we have built these 15 powers. So in other words, you as an ambassador or as a health resiliency maximization coach or as a wellness person in your school system, when you use this particular program, you can count on the fact that you don't have to keep track of all these ideas, because all these ideas that I'm going to share with you now, these 15 powers, are built in to the process. So simply just implementing the process makes all of these things happen. We already know, and so I'll just launch into it, we already know that we've asked the question, how satisfied am I with these 8 pillars of well-being maximization in my life? And so it doesn't mean how successful are you, and it doesn't mean how much do you know. It means how do you feel about it? How have you been able to move this to the level of a skill, whatever it is, hydration, rest, exercise, etc. Then the next thing, when it's time for a person to make a change, there's a very powerful process that leverages the outcome, and that is what we call the readiness for change. And so you'll see as we go forward that the readiness for change asks a few questions. And one of the main questions is, why are you doing this? Are you doing it for yourself because you want to? Or are you making a change in your life because somebody told you you should? And so forth. And so as it gets closer to being something that a person actually wants to do, then that's something that they're more ready to do. Group process and storytelling or testimonials. I'm part of a very dynamic group of coaches that we've trained who meet to do group coaching. And we just, every time we do these group sessions, it becomes so obvious that the power for leveraging these new behaviors into people's lives lie in the fact that they are being purposeful about it. And with there are other people involved, other people who are succeeding, other people who are failing, other people who are stumbling, other people who are learning, it just gives more permission for each person to be stumbling, failing, learning, etc. And remember, our whole idea, and we'll talk about this down below, is that this process is fail-safe. So in other words, if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, don't really care, as long as the process continues in the direction of becoming more informed and more ready. Testimonial is the power that happens in these group meetings, because with the kids and with the teachers, you'll be convening these dialogues. Sometimes you'll be talking to people as individuals. Sometimes you'll be talking to people as in groups. And when somebody tells a story about how they set a goal and then didn't do very well at it, and then they reset it and made the action steps more small so that they could actually accomplish them, then there's real power in that, and you can feel that power. Recognizing challenges means that one of the biggest reasons why people don't succeed at having a success with a goal that they've set is that they haven't inherently clarified what are the challenges. And one of the great questions that we can ask is, why haven't I done this already? And then there should be like a whole pile of reasons. Like if we said we're going to we're going to do, a new sport like, fishing. So you have to go hiking to go fishing, and those are all physical activities, and that's great. But then the only thing that you have is some kind of very fancy high-heeled shoes or some kind of shoes that don't really work for a hike. So to be able to go fishing, first we have to just think about what kind of shoes we're going to wear. So if we don't have those shoes, that's a challenge, and then that can become an action step to get shoes that are suitable for hiking. Intention, affirmation, and inner wisdom. The setting a goal that is not in accord or not aligned with intention is is uh, is likely not to be as successful. So in other words, if somebody says you should do this, then everybody turns into a teenager and doesn't want to do it. And so the concept for setting goals in an association with intention, goals are external and intention is internal. And so we want to be able to support people by helping them to recognize, well, why do you want to hydrate more? Well, I want to be more well. But why do you want to be more well? And the answer for a lot of people is that I want to be here to enjoy my family. I want to be here to support my family. So hydration ends up being a goal, but the intention is that I want to be more well. I hope that makes sense. And affirmation, we will talk about the fact that we have thousands and thousands of thoughts every day, and many of them are negative thoughts. It turns out that more than 50%, closer to 80% of all thoughts that humans have are negative thoughts, like, well, I'll get this done, and I don't even want to do it, and all that stuff. And so learning how to be able to formulate thoughts that are positive, and as a coach or an ambassador, you'll learn how to do this, for people to be able to talk to themselves. This is called self-talk. It's one of the pillars. So we'll talk about that later. Setting realistic goals. It's really easy to set unrealistic goals and not fulfill those goals. And when we don't fulfill a goal, we feel like a loser. And when we feel like a loser, then we don't want to try because of the fact that we tried already and we didn't do very well. Well, it all goes back to the fact that the goal was not realistic and the person was not ready. And so the entire process of the 8 pillars and the work of the ambassadors, and as we push this down into the population at large, is people to figure out what their goals are that are achievable. And then, even then, we're going to break it down into smaller parts called action steps. Self-reliance. One of the things that's one of the great superpowers of the American society is that we believe that we are self-reliant. But check it out. How long could you go without electricity? How long could you go without the water that comes out of the faucet in your community? How long could you go if the grocery store was empty? And so part of what happens when we use a process like the health resiliency maximization process and like the circle of life coaching process that I talked about earlier, is that we're supporting people in becoming more purposeful and more intentful and more self-reliant. And also, by the way, self-determining. And we chose the word self-reliance because it just feels like it's more about having a practical capacity to decide how to pursue our lives. But it's actually rooted in self-determinism, which is the superpower that's in the Declaration of Independence, about how we all have these rights that are instilled within our humanity by the architect of the universe, to be self-determining and to be respected in the world and to respect others all that beautiful, those high, beautiful ideals of our society. Targeted action means to hone the actions that are associated with the goal in such a way that they're small, doable, and then the person who set the goal gets to have a feeling of winning. And winning is like snowball. When you start to figure out how to have a win, then you become more courageous. And when you become more courageous, you can accomplish more. And when you accomplish more, then you feel more powerful. And when you feel more powerful, then you can take on bigger things. It's a very powerful process. Accountability means that when we say something to someone about a goal that we have set, it makes it by magnitude more possible that we're going to fulfill that goal. So, for instance, many studies have been done by universities, psychology departments, and business departments. And it basically turns out that people who set goals and tell other people about them and work in a group or a team to be able to remain accountable to the process. We don't mean you have to be accountable to fulfill the goal as you have set it. That's a recipe for craziness. What we're doing with the accountability is to hold the person accountable to the process of refining the goal and making the action steps smaller and more doable. The expertless system is very powerful because what happens when experts tell us what to do, we automatically become teenagers and don't want to do it. So, whether it's our parents or the local authorities, or you remember when you were a teen, right? How often you felt like, well, why should I do that? And anyway, and all that stuff. That a teenager is a teenager is immortal and lives in every human to the end of their days. So what we can do to power up a person to be more successful is to help them to recognize when they're more ready to make a change, and then a group sort of process. So everybody's playing along and it's like a little tiny community. And, and then we set some kind of intents and goals, and then we hold each other accountable. And so when we get together with someone, we say, hey, I remember that last week you set that goal of, drinking more water every week or going to bed earlier or whatever it is. How's that going? The question isn't, did you do it? It's how's that going? And so the ambassador, the coach, becomes less the expert telling people what to do and more participant in that person's life and fostering and supporting them in finding their way. Very powerful. Self-directed group. How the self-directed group works is that as the coach or the ambassador supports people in understanding the framework for what we call the blueprint for success, the people in the group can run the group. So there might be a time when the coach or the ambassador would say, and we can actually do this on purpose, say, well, you guys get together on Wednesday. I can't be there, but you know how to use the system. And so now we're driving the power of the system out of the expert and into the community. And it's amazing regarding resident wisdom. It's amazing how much people know. It's just amazing how much people know that can help another person. And usually these stories get told in the person. So Sally might say, I'm just this sleep thing is really driving me crazy. And then Barry says, I had trouble sleeping too. And I really found that when I did those breath exercises, it really helped me. And when I did more exercise, somehow there's a relationship between exercise and sleep. So now the expert or the coach didn't say it. Sally had an inquiry. Barry had an insight. He shared in the first person. This is what I found. And so it drives the power into the community. Turn to yourself, it's something that's a very powerful process to just be able to trust one's own insights and intuitions. Often people will say, well, I don't know. And the answer is from the ambassador, from the coach, is, well, you probably do, but we don't really have a very good practice of self-inquiry. And so this whole process of tuning into oneself for many different areas is very powerful. And when we instill the skill of that kind of self-trust in people, then those people become more courageous and they accomplish things in their lives. So it's interesting how the 8 pillars of wellness or well-being or health maximization can contribute a person for the entire rest of their life, not just because they drank water and slept more deeply, but because they gained a kind of trust in themselves. Acceptance, grace, gratitude, and prayer. You know how easy it is to set a goal and have it not work out. You know how easy it is for the expectation that a goal would be fulfilled is followed by disappointment. You'll find as an ambassador, and maybe you've already found life, that expectation breeds disappointment. And there are ways to be able to approach our lives where the level of expectation is lower. Now, if you're the boss and someone has a task, then the expectation is that they're going to fill that task. But we're not in the army here, and this isn't the kind of team that we would have for a football team or a basketball team or a baseball team. This is a team of collaborating community members who want to support each other in ways that build the person up and not taking them down. And one of the most powerful things that we can do is that we can move from expectation to preference. Preference is very different than expectation. And then from preference, which can also lead to disappointment, we can go to acceptance. The power of acceptance is amazing. And that's why old people are perceived as being so wise, because they've learned to lower their expectations and even their preferences and move into a territory where, you're kind of going with the flow, shall we say. And that's very powerful. One of the most powerful things in the world is grace and gratitude. So that's 2 of the most powerful things in the world. And it's interesting because when people have a tragedy, let's say, a big fire, there's lots of fire going on these days, and a community, and a house burns down and so forth. And so then the person on the newscast says, what are you feeling? And the person says, I'm feeling so grateful to just be alive. And we can build a house. And I have this picture of myself with my mother as a child. And I'm so grateful I was able to bring that picture out of that house before it burned down. Everybody in the world, when you ask them in a certain kind of context, what are you grateful for? Everyone will say something. And because of no matter what's going on in our lives, there are things that we have been given. And of course, those things that we have been given, as opposed to those things that we have earned, that's grace. So as you just take a moment and think to yourself, like, what are the things I'm grateful for that just seem like they came to me because of the fact that I was in the right place at the right time, shall we say? That's grace. and gratitude for those things that have been given in that way is so powerful. And when people speak of that to each other, it's different than the kinds of things that we talk about all the time, like sports and politics, and it's very powerful. And then prayer is really an amazing part of our lives. And, I always hesitate to say too much about people's spiritual lives because it's so very personal. But I'll mention one thing, and that is the kind of prayer that is giving voice to celebration. And, there's a kind of petitioning prayer where we ask for something. And just want to sort of reflect on the difference between petitioning prayer and appreciation prayer or celebration prayer. And we'll leave it there. But when people in these health resiliency maximization groups talk about when they confront the challenges to being able to implement some of these things in their lives, the conversation can easily turn to prayer. Fail-safe system, we talked about that before. When a person realizes that they're in a context where no matter what they do, they're learning as opposed to failing. Because with learning, we move up, and with failure, we move down. And so as a coach or an ambassador, you're called upon to remind people constantly when they keep banging themselves for the fact that they're not doing what they said they would do, that the process isn't a judgment process. We're not getting a grade, but what's happening is that we're we're discovering how we live within ourselves in a little bit more purposeful sort of way. And then lifelong learning, we just talked about that. Maybe not everybody is interested in lifelong learning. There is that, and there are some grumpy people who just don't want to learn anything. And so you'll find out who those people are. But improvement, everybody loves improvement. If you said to a grumpy person, hey, how about what would it be like for you if your, environment was improved? That person would almost always say, like their home environment would always say, wow, that'd be great. So this coaching process, or this process of continuous improvement that people are allowed to do and can be supported in doing through a process like this CHARM program is very, 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 very powerful. So my final thought here is to say, remember, these features are built in to the program. And so when you find a person, shall we say, stuck or not progressing, then you'll remind them of the expert list system, of course. You'll remind them of the fail-safe system. And then you can just create things like environments for learning and environments for sharing. And when people do have a success, we want to have an environment for celebration. And when a person doesn't have a success and they reveal that, we want to have an environment of sort of cheering, kind of like with kids, when we say, yeah, okay, so you didn't get a home run, but wow, you were up there and you swung at it and it was fantastic. So I'll leave it there.
That's great. Thank you for that. What did you all think about those 15 powers? Are those aligned with some of the things that you guys do and share and practice with students, or are those things that are kind of new thoughts that could be incorporated?
We should probably say that, the foundation of the CHARM process is sharing. So when Erica, so we have to do the encouraging to move people. And eventually what happens is that people, once they get off their, whatever it is, reason that they're not sharing, then sharing sort of just bubbles up like crazy. So we got to just, somebody lean forward and say something, and let's move this along.
Hey, we're getting major echoes here. So I'll jump in, Dr. Yonke. I was on a wellness webinar this morning, believe it or not, with a group of educators. And the same thing you said last week and today about 80% of human thoughts are negative came up this morning, and how to move them to positive. And so I think that is something that I'd love to see teachers and students work on. So that it was just kind of neat, because, and I brought up at the other one, I said, hey, this came up at a wellness Zoom that I had a week ago. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're piling on.
Well, I think it all ties into our goals with redesign with social emotional well-being and health. And we spend time in the mornings, we call it a soft start, but it's a family time where you have your classroom family, and we have these legitimate conversations. So this ties right into how we could incorporate this discussion, the accountability, the encouragement
Thinking about that too.
during that time.
That sounds like an excellent tie-in. It really does. Because you already got it built into your system.
I was going to say that I think the powers are there for each teacher and classroom, and we expose kids to those things, but I think we each do it in our own way. And the terminology, maybe the purpose is a little different for each one of us. And so that may be a major benefit that I hadn't thought about to the program we hope to bring across the county, is that we'll use similar terminologies, which will then mean the same thing to kids, whether they go to Altoona Midway or Neosho or Fredonia.
I have a question about that. So would you say that for some of these that, the word choice, the key word, really makes sense to somebody, but that same keyword might not make sense, or might be even, something that sounds like, well, wait a minute, that's too weird. I'm not used to that. Do you feel like we can support the ambassadors and then the teachers in, say, having a list like this, and then, put a little dash, and then next to it, put the word that is emerging as the sort of favorite keyword in the community?
If you're asking me, I think so. I think that'll be one of the tasks of the group that begins to formulate the guidebook that we begin with, and then that could be just a function of that evolving.
Nice.
I don't know what I was going to say now.
Perfect.
I guess
That's
a fancy word synonym. That's really what we're talking about here. Sometimes I'll be writing a speech or something and I keep using the same word. So I'll look up, well, what's another way to say that word? And it's creating a language that reaches the most.
Yeah, language is really powerful, especially when you guys are talking to students, and then probably the age of students also proposes different words to be used. So the way I talk to my son, who's three, they're 4 and 5, is different than how I'm going to talk to one of those high school students that we work with, on a multitude of different health things. But it's just interesting how your language can really trigger someone's inside intention and then reflected in their goal. And that alignment with our language and how we present this information, I think, is like the biggest challenge and also the coolest part about this. So you guys hold the key to that, because Dr. Yonke, myself, Dennis, we don't know that environment like you guys do, and that language that needs to be used. So that's like the perfect segue here into our next our next thing on the agenda, which I'm going to share again, just so everybody's on the same page. If you need to move around, adjust yourself, take some moments to realign, take a drink perhaps. I'm gonna show you guys the next form, and I won't spend, but I'm gonna try to keep it at like 15 minutes here, so that way we move along. In this blueprint for success, I think I'm gonna hold back for the third session, just to keep us on time. And then before we take a few minutes to break, and you can do something at 2 o'clock for yourself, I might see if Dr. Yonke would lead us in just some deep breaths or movement, something connected, so that we feel like, you take away something to perhaps share with yourself or a family member or your students. So, and then we'll get into the rest and movement, which will kind of conclude our portion and hopefully have time to share in that engagement. So I'll share my screen. If you guys get out your assess your readiness form, I will kind of lead you through that. I've got to figure out where it is on my thing here. Oh boy. There we go. Okay. Now you should see this really wonderful form. This was something that was created in the Circle of Life program by Roger and his wife. And I'm going to have to say, and Dennis, you could probably come in here too. I've used this form in many different ways since we received our certification and went through the program. It's going to be wonderful for students. I don't know how it will look or how it will be molded to fit your needs, but I have used it in my own goal setting to figure out what my goals even are, to figure out if it's the right time. And so I'm going to kind of decrease my screen there so you can see it a little bit better. It should probably be in front of you too. So this Assess Your Readiness tool is designed to kind of give yourself a moment of reflection. And that reflection is just here for you to decide right now. You've been introduced to the circle, you've been introduced to the pillars, and you've already kind of assessed where your strengths are and where those elements are, maybe some of those that need support, or maybe you want to maybe change something to be better or to improve, or maybe it's not the right time. So I'm just going to kind of very briefly lead you through the form, and I would love for you to think through right now, maybe look at your circle and pick out 3 areas that you felt really strongly about, and maybe 3 areas that you felt like you could maybe focus on, or maybe take the next couple of weeks that we're together. I think I told you guys when we began, my intention is to be more well, and by hydrating myself, I've kind of focused on that area for a couple weeks now. It's been on top of mind. So I'm going to kind of use that as my example, but I want to encourage you all to think of an area on that circle that you want to work on. This isn't about kids or students or anyone else, but this is just for you for this moment. That way, when you do give this to students to use or to look at, you feel like you're equipped with the knowledge to roll this out. So we're going to kind of assess that one area that you feel that you want to focus on. Perhaps it's not the weakest area like we talked about. Maybe it's something that you feel like you just want to see if it's the right time to change maybe a few areas or to work on. And you're going to assess your level of satisfaction. And so that first question on how satisfied are you with this area of your life right now? Think about one being that very satisfied, it's go time, very satisfied, it's I don't need to acknowledge it, or very dissatisfied where it's like I'm kind of ready for some change. That second question here, it's going to take time for you to do this, but you have to kind of weigh out the pros and the cons. And if the pros are on that heavy side over here on that 5, that's a good thing, but there are always going to be cons to everything. So, when I look at my water focus area, I always think about how, drinking more water has a ton of pros. That is going to help me feel better. It's going to help me just be able to hydrate myself, makes my brain function better. I feel 100% better when I drink more water. There are cons associated with everything, getting up all the time, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So you kind of have to use this time to reflect and decide what those pros and cons are. And again, that time of reflection is powerful in itself. Dr. Yonke, is there anything on that particular question that you would add?
No, I think you're doing great.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right. Third question. This is kind of like the alignment question. I think, Dr. Yonke, you said it really well when you said that like your intention is internal and the goal is external. And so if you're wanting to change something, but it's not aligned with that internal desire, then you're probably not going to feel very motivated to actually do it. So take a little second to, reflect on, are you highly motivated to take this change up? Am I highly motivated to make this change, or is that something that's, something I should do? And we don't want to do the shoulds because, like you said, that those expectations lead to, not so good feelings. So there's that question. The fourth question is rating yourself, how you feel currently on the physical and emotional level of pain or stress that's caused in this area. So are you physically in pain and you want to change something to make yourself feel more well? Or is there an emotional stressor that is making you want to make this change? I can think of a whole bunch of different things that come off the top of my head, but I know that my body is in pain or doesn't feel good when I don't have the right nutrition. If I don't exercise and move my body, I get super tense. So that's just kind of like an example of how like your physical ailments could be driving your need to change or pursue something, in your focus area. The fifth question, rating yourself in your current amount of crisis or loss that may motivate you for immediate change. Maybe you're at a time where it's like, I've had enough. I don't like the way I feel. Perhaps there's something I can change. And I want to work on this. I want to work on myself right now. And so you kind of have to decide, are you at a high crisis where that loss is high or low? And that may motivate you for that immediate change, if that makes sense. The sixth question, is now a good time for focusing on this area for your life, in your life right now? You guys, and I think a lot of us, if the pandemic has shed any light, it's that we all need to take more time for ourselves, whatever area you're choosing right now. You got to kind of take time to decide if now is a good time. I don't know if there's ever a great time. Do you know what I mean? I always have to look at this question and I think I'm going to have to make some changes, but am I willing to give the time that it takes to make that change? And I always feel like now, if you don't do it now, then, you know, it sits on the back burner in your head for a while. And I don't know, it just kind of sits there. You have to decide, though, if you're willing to put the time in right now to make those changes. How much, we kind of talked about this one, how much of this change is being done for you as opposed, maybe you're doing this change for someone else. And I hope that, of course, your family members or your students would be affected positively from the change that you make. But I also hope that you're doing this change or focusing on this area for yourself because you deserve that self-determinationing factor of, I need to take responsibility for my own health. I can't blame this on the environment or what I'm doing for work or what I'm doing at home. I hope that, you know, when you're assessing this particular area, that you feel like you're doing it for yourself. But of course, other people could perhaps benefit from it too, but it has to be your idea. As you're prepared to move forward with this change, regardless of the possible responses or disapproval, fear, control, insecurities, resistance of significant people in your life. So you have to think about those challenges that may come up and the people that may not support you in their fullest. You kind of have to be ready or think through what possible responses you would make to someone if they didn't give you the support that you felt like you wanted, or if they disapprove of what area you're focusing on. Some people are pretty resistant to giving you support that you need if they feel like they're being infringed upon, or if that change is going to maybe negatively affect them. So you have to think through, are you prepared for those responses? Do you feel like you have the support that you need to come up with those takeaways and those things that you would say to somebody? And then the last question is asking, how in place or ready are the resources and support system that you have to make and sustain this change? So if your focus area is exercise or movement, do you have the things that you need right now to make it happen? Do you have equipment? Do you have the time? Are you going to make the time? Do you have the people that are going to guide you through what exercises you're going to do? Do you have a partner, a support system that's going to help you hold yourself accountable? So that's kind of a little rating, the rating that you would be questioning right now. And then you have this wonderful opportunity to go back through, and if you are doing this alongside me, you add up your total score. And they made this really good little key here that shows, your low numbers. If you add up your totals from those responses and those questions, 1 to 15 is saying, perhaps now isn't really the right time to make that change. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not ready in the future. It's just, are you ready? Maybe it comes later down the road, or it's something that you work towards. It's back there on the back burner. That area in yellow, that's 16 to 30, if you add up your total and you're in the yellow, that is kind of where you have to go back and look at, where was I scoring low? What were those questions? Maybe it's like I scored really low on the area of, I don't really have what I need to drink more water. I don't really have what I need to make exercise a priority, or whatever your focus area is. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't choose that focus area right now, but you should just become aware of, what do I need to make this happen? Or do I even really want this to be my focus area? That's a good question. And then if you got in the high markers in that 31 to 45 total, that's the green light. that is saying that you feel comfortable, confident in pursuing something, whatever focus area that is. So that in a nutshell, my friends, I could have went through that a lot slower, but you get the drift. I think that this type of tool would be so great in classrooms, especially for like the upper levels. I don't know if you feel like 6th grade, 8th grade, up through high school, just making your goals and assessing them and then actually taking the time, not like I did and hurried you through it, but thoughts on this form? How does anybody want to comment?
I was thinking I wanted to do this in each of the 8 areas that we assessed, and then see how take that time with myself to do that later and focus on each area, but then to see how that progresses as we implement this.
That's a great idea.
I
always use, go ahead, Aaron. Well, I was gonna, the real black and white easy one is, let's say dieting. Want to maybe make better food choices. Well, you may score pretty well, but the timing isn't right. Like, is it the best time to try to go on a diet during Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's? What's your success rate? For me, it wouldn't be a good time to do that.
I liked number 7 of how much this change is being done for you as opposed to someone else, and being aware of it. That question forces you to be aware of almost who your tribe is and who's going to encourage you. And sometimes when you're moving forward with certain positive things, and like Mr. Woodcock says, if 80% of, and Dr. Yonke also, if 80% of our thoughts are negative, statistically speaking, you have people in your tribe that might not be as supportive. So figuring out kind of awareness is the mother of discontentment. So when people become aware of positive changes, they might be a little more skeptical or even not supportive, and trying to figure out where those people score. And sometimes it can surprise you. So just keeping that in mind and not letting that set you back.
That question is so powerful. I'm glad that other people saw that too. That's great. Would now be a good time for us to go into a mind-body practice and then take a little break for like 5 minutes and then conclude with our rest and movement tidbits? Oh, I think you're muted. There we go.
Yes, that's a great idea. I have it as the thing that we would do after I show the PowerPoint, but this is timing wise is perfect. And so when we get to the end of that PowerPoint, we won't do it again. We'll just do it now. And so allow me to just say the simplest thing. And because we're going to be talking about rest and activity, but particularly rest and sleep, I wanted to do a little practice that is kind of like how to take a rest while you're awake. And and for today, we won't do any kind of movements. We'll just, we will be moving in that we will breathe a little deeper and we will adjust our posture, but we're not going to do any arm movements. And if you're tired of sitting, you can certainly stand and do this, because every culture has a tradition about how to be quiet and still the mind, even when we're standing or riding on a bus or whatever it might be. And so this is called the 3 treasures. The 3 treasures. And the three treasures are the body adjustment, or it's also often called the three adjustments, or the three mindful adjustments. The three treasures are the body adjustment, the breath adjustment, and the mind focus adjustment. And so let's just start with our body. And you can do this when you're with your the people that you're being an ambassador for wellness with, because it's a really nice, simple, very direct, brief practice. So first, sitting or standing, do whatever you know how to do to adjust your posture. And I'll just give you a few clues to lengthen your spine. And by the way, if you're sitting in a chair where you're kind of leaning back, move to the front of the chair so you won't be using the back of the chair to lean on, so that we want to build the muscles in the torso, sometimes called the core. And have you ever noticed that when you sit up really straight, after a little while, you get tired and kind of want to change your position? Why? Well, because the muscles of the core are not very strong. And so even though we're not doing anything with movement, we're just adjusting the posture, it's still exercise, because we're strengthening the core muscles by sitting up like this. Then, as you lengthen your spine by lifting your head, so what can you do to lift your head? And watch what I do here. I'm gonna go to, I was, my computer was in the wrong spot, and I'm doing this, or I'm texting, I'm kind of all slumped over texting. So then let's take a look at what happens. I put my head on top, and then I lift. Well, look at the difference between there, and all the organs are all crunched up, and they're saying, help, help, we can't get anything. Pipes, all the pipes are compressed. And then you go to lengthen your spine, lift your head, drop your shoulders. I mean, wow, that's such a huge change. And if you were going to say, try to, I don't know if it's the best idea to say this, but I'll say it anyway. If you're going to try to win a beauty contest, what would be one of the main things that all the people that would be looking for? They'd be looking for that presentation and that lengthening and that whatever you call this. So that's the body part. Let's think about it again. Lengthen your spine, lift your head, drop your shoulders. Now soften your fingers. That's the first treasure. And wow, what a powerful treasure that is. And by the way, you can do this with your computer by putting your computer somewhere and your chair, and putting a pillow on your chair, or getting a different chair, or whatever you need to do, getting one of those desks that goes up and down, so that your keyboard is in the right place and that your screen is in the right place, and you are basically in a preferred posture while you're doing your work. Then the same thing in your car. Move the mirror so that, sit up straight, adjust the car seat so you're in the solid preferred posture. Now adjust your mirror so that you can see the traffic behind you, so that later, when you're all scrunched down, and hysterical after a long day with crazy kids at school and so forth, and you're kind of gnashing your teeth and all that, you say, I can't see out my mirror. So do not change your mirror so that you adjust to sitting like this. Change your sitting like this so that you can see out your mirror. Okay, so the second one, I won't be quite as lengthy with this one, is the breath. Big, deep slow, relaxed breath. So just however you do that, breath in, long and slow, and then exhale slowly. And there's all kinds of reasons why just deepening your breath changes your internal environment. It has to do with the autonomic nervous system and the vagal nerve and so forth. And adjusting the breath pace to slow and deep and relaxed has a very significant effect on the production of neurotransmitters in the body. That's body chemistry, neurologically oriented body chemistry. Then let's go to the third. And of course, you're with the breath, there's all kinds of things that are going on. We'll talk about it in a future session. So let's go on to the mind focus. What we want for mind focus is present moment. And in the present moment, there's a light there, and I'm noticing it. There's a window there and a tree on the other side of that window. I'm noticing that. There are a bunch of people in this classroom with me on Zoom, and I'm noticing that these people are there. I'm noticing myself and noticing my posture and checking in with myself. I'm noticing my breath, and all of these things are happening now. And so a way to adjust the mind is to bring one's attention just to the present moment. And externally, there are things that we can notice that are in the present moment, including our breath and our posture. And then internally, there are things that we can notice in this moment, like how do I feel? And isn't it interesting? The word feel has two areas. There's emotional feeling, and then there's sensory feeling. So when now we're going to be in this posture, we're going to take a couple of deep breaths, and we're going to notice how we're feeling. And then that'll be that. And we'll hand it back to Erica. So here we go. 2 deep breaths. And as you're exhaling slowly, notice how you're feeling. And after the second deep breath, be quiet for a few moments and notice how you're feeling. Okay, here we go. Breath in. And one more. Where in your body can you feel something? Like your heart's beating, you might feel that. Or you just wiggle your fingers and feel yourself feeling your fingers wiggling. Or you can check your posture again. Or you could take another deep breath. And then how are you feeling emotionally or intellectually? What is that feeling? And now back to you, Erica. Before we go on to anything else, just do the thing of, asking people what they're feeling. And a little hint for all the ambassadors is that when people, when the ambassador says, anybody want to make a comment? That's a little different than saying, Christina, tell us what you're feeling. Erica, tell us what you're feeling. Aaron, tell us what you're feeling. So that way we be sure that we get engagement. Erica.
That's the perfect. I couldn't help but think when you were telling us about the car, like aligning your posture in the car. I remember you guys saying that during our certification, and ever since then I put like my affirmation of breathe on my steering wheel, because I tend to tense up in that moment. And ever since then, ever since you gave us that like visual in my car, I actually use the time in my car to do the deep breathing and to align the posture and to take a few moments before, you know, the next thing begins to do that alignment. So Christina, what did you girls think? What did you ladies think?
I felt that tension in my shoulder relax, and I could feel my muscles under my shoulder blades because I was shifting that posture. After the deep breathing, I just felt a very that clarity, I guess, like just inner peace and focus.
And I felt that my brain just opened up, and it was like I was watching a movie. Oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do in PE on the circle before we start the game. We are doing this exercise.
Oh,
I was seeing that.
that's awesome. That is so cool. Tim, what about you?
For me, when my fingers, I think I keep a lot of stress in my hands, clenched up, and when I actually wiggled my fingers, it was very discernible. I could feel that release. So it was a neat feeling.
Cool. Aaron?
Well, the deep breathing just brings about a calmness for me, and allows me to think a little more clearly and be a little more confident, I think.
Yeah, it's very freeing. Kari, what did you think?
I think where I felt it was more in my mind as I'm working through the day. I feel like the things that you need to do can stack up on you. And so when you deep breathe, instead of feeling like it's tumbling down on you, while I was sitting there thinking about it, it seemed like they got more linear in fashion instead of more like a waterfall fashion. And then it reminded me that this is similar, the thinking about the things you can see, the things you can touch, the things you can smell. Those are some exercises we did with wounded warriors and people with PTSD. And so when they would have anxiety, we would ask them, all right, if you're thinking about the battlefield or having a hard time, sit down and find 5 things you can see, 5 things you can touch, 5 things you can smell, and realizing that it's not just those situations that you need to calm down and reset.
That's so powerful. That sensation of like thinking about like how does the air and the temperature of the room, you know, how is it different between when you inhale and then when you exhale, the temperature, you know, just that acknowledgement, those senses. That's really cool. Hunter, are you on? Do you have anything to share?
I am actually. I do that breathing exercise about 6 times a day. So I carry a lot of stress in my neck and head, and so when I feel myself start to clench, I just take a couple minutes and do that. So self-reflection and doing that breathing exercise is something I do a lot. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, something for sure that I think our students and kids could probably do a lot more of too, and just to learn and practice. So thank you guys for sharing. That's so powerful, and I think everyone took away a little bit different points, and that's really cool. That's what it's all about. So with that, let's give ourselves like 5 minutes to move, and then we will do a little hit on movement and rest, and then we'll be done. So take a second, hydrate, stand up, move around, and then we'll be back here in like 5 minutes. So 2:20. We'll give everyone a minute or so. Dr. Yonke, I went ahead and made you the host, so your slides can be shared as we go through rest and movement.
All right, so you let me know when I should launch in.
Okay, perfect. I hope that I didn't put you much of a time crunch. I know I didn't expect that first part to take so long, but that's okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I won't be here for every meeting, but I'm absolutely front and center for this one.
I love it. Let's dive in.
All right. So we have our 8 pillars of health resiliency maximization. And before we go into that, the PowerPoint, I just want to remind you a couple of things. One is that everybody knows about these things. And you might think, well, you already said that. And so I want to give you an example. I'm saying this because I want to give you an example of what happens when we think we're saying things too many times. Most people will say, and I've had this experience, that's why I'm reflecting it, you could say that 1,000 times and it still wouldn't be too much. You know, the whole idea of lengthen your posture. People just, mostly people are not self-reflective in the way of noticing how they're thinking or how they're occupying the space that they're in. And so when we say that, you know, everybody knows these things, but our process is really to support people in doing something with what they know. That's very powerful. And so I want to just say that as a, shall we say, a little bit of an introduction. And then allow me to share my screen, and off we go into these this PowerPoint. So session 2 with you guys is rest and activity. And these are big medicine. I think it actually says that on one of these slides. Let me just get there. So we'll take our time to get to big medicine. I'm going to re-show you a few slides because these are the kinds of things that really help to just be heard over and over and over again. Now, we are called to learn about our natural health capacities. Most people just think, well, you know, I'll be as well as I can, as long as I can, and that'll be that. And they don't really associate their personal behaviors, including something as simple as just taking a deep breath, with a health capacity. But it is, and it's not just a kind of like useless sort of throwaway health capacity. It's a power tool. And we've talked about this too, that when people take care of themselves, then they're a part of the fabric of the community that's resilient and stable, as opposed to the people who are the parts of the community who need help. And when too many people in a community need help and not enough people in the community are there to be stable and resilient, that basically is the description of a collapsing society. And, you know, to some extent, sadly, it appears that we are living in a collapsing society. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. But instead of getting depressed about it, you know, I want to raise the flag of it. I want to beat the drum of it. I want to blow the horn of it. Let's, you know, mobilize and activate. And the other thing that I wanted to say about these things that people know about but don't do is that they're all free. They have no cost. And wow, so it's a kind of patriotism. It's a kind of frugal activity. It's a kind of healthcare that you don't pay for. And we're not talking about free drugs like in healthcare for all. What a joke that is. Healthcare for all, my point of view, is really about getting people free drugs. Why do we need free drugs? We make medicine in our own body. And we can make a gesture to the strengthening of our society by using the drugs that we make within ourselves that you cannot buy, instead of somehow figuring out how to get drug companies for us to pay taxes so the drug companies can charge for their drug, but then we're going to give them those drugs for free. It's just, well, anyway, I don't want to make any large declarations here, but so the most profound medicine is produced within us, and we're going to use these following powerful at-home self-care methods. So, you know, jot things down and go to the mountaintop and just sing as loud as you can. Because think about this. Who would ever judge you for being part of how the world is a better place? Anybody who would ever judge you for being a part of how the world is a better place is a deficient judge. And, you know, judge not anyway. So there you go. So here's the 8 pillars. We're going to go to rest and activity. And I love this. I love this guy over here. You know, just like not quite getting there. And so, you know, that's a comment. And by the way, statistically, the highest percentage of there's the largest number of people, let's put it that way, the largest number of people who have chronic disease have the chronic disease of insomnia. Insomnia will not kill you, but insomnia will contribute to every health problem that you have: heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and arthritis. And remember last time we talked about inflammation. Not sleeping is one of the most profoundly inflammatory things that can happen to a human body. So anyway, sleep is a big medicine, and activity is a big medicine. And it's kind of interesting to use the word activity as opposed to the word exercise. You get to make a choice about how you're going to approach this. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's just kind of interesting because exercise sounds provocative and like it requires a lot of special equipment, but the word activity is still causing the muscles to move, to deepen the breath, to expand the heart rate. So all of the stuff that happens in exercise happens in all kinds of activities that we're doing all the time. Just so we can be secure that that the power of sleep or the science of sleep is meaningful, just notice that 2 of the most widely revered sources of information. Now I do understand that there are people among us, and frankly, I'm one of them, who feels skeptical about things that Time Magazine is into. And, you know, anyway, let's don't go, it's my personal view. But the point is that the power of sleep and the science of sleep have made their way into the mainstream of our society in a huge way. And of course, one of the parts of science is the pharmaceutical companies. And, here comes all these, the butterfly that comes in through the window at night and puts you to sleep, all these kinds of, drugs that people use to be able to sleep, when actually it's possible to cultivate the capacity to sleep. And there are many ways to do this. And the 8 pillars, 7 of the 8 pillars are how to be able to develop the capacity to sleep more efficiently: food, hydration, exercise, stress mastery, and progress and relaxation. So all of those things contribute to sleep. And notice over here on the right of this image that it basically shows like how powerful sleep is, including, just all these things: energy, concentration, decision making, memory, manage stress, mental health, and better immune system. Wow. I mean, that's just, so let's take a big dose of sleep. And rest doesn't necessarily mean sleeping. It means turning off everything else. So when you find yourself resting by watching bad news, that's probably not really a solution, is it? Because bad news makes us feel sad. Bad news makes us feel scared. Bad news makes us feel frustrated. Bad news makes us feel angry. And, so that's not restful. You can say, well, it helps me turn off my brain. And there may be some benefit to that. But the fact that the fact that your feelings are tied in to, what you're watching on television and what you're reading. So what about just looking, like I was in a circumstance yesterday where I was able to lie on the ground, look up into green leaves, and then beyond those green leaves were these gorgeous clouds drifting. And it was such a rehabilitative moment. And I wasn't there for a long time, and I would have loved to have been there longer. So let's think about what is the range of activity. Some of the range of activity is way over on this side, and it is very gentle. And some of the range of activity is over on this side, and it's very vigorous. And every kind of activity, whether gentle or vigorous, turns on the fuel. When we exercise, when we use the muscles, the body makes fuel. That's the whole Krebs cycle, where the oxygen plus the glucose in the presence of adenosine triphosphate creates ERGS, ERGs. That's the unit of work, energetic work that a cell can do. And then the byproducts of that creation of energy includes water. And so when we do any kind of activity that's using the muscles, we're actually producing pure water as a byproduct from the cells. And then the other byproduct is carbon dioxide, of course, which is a poison. And we want to get that out. And exhaling is a very powerful way to get that out. And so when we increase the level of activity, which is a good thing, we also tend to breathe heavier, which is also a good thing to dispel or discharge the carbon dioxide. Let's also just say here, why did I put these two pictures? Well, one of them looks like these people are doing a kind of gentle bending exercise, like you might do in a calisthenics or in a yoga class or in in Chinese yoga is called Qigong, or a Qigong class. And then these people down below, they're carrying weights and, you know, flexing their muscles and stuff. And so that's like, you know, more. But still, they don't look like they're beating themselves up. And, you know, there's an idea about no pain, no gain. And that idea it's reasonable, particularly for elite, high-level professional athletes being paid millions of dollars. I just saw, I saw this great quote from Muhammad Ali, the great boxer. He said, when he was a younger person, it's a quote from him, is he says, "I'm going to live with pain today so that I can be a champ for the rest of my life." And, you know, he did it, and it can be done. But so many people injure themselves with this high idea of the fact that exercise needs to really go beyond what's comfortable. And I'm not suggesting that. Things that are activities back in the 1990s, when we had the first President Bush, there was a Surgeon General named C. Everett Koopes. And C. Everett Koopes went after smoking, and that was a really good thing. And then after he went after smoking, he went after physical exercise. And there was mountains of research, all published early in the 1990s, by like 1992 and 1993, that proved that people who rake leaves, push a grocery cart, wash their car, but you know, you wash your car every month, and what we're talking about, or every 6 months, or maybe you have somebody else wash your car. So you have to figure out, like, well, what are the activities that I can do on a daily basis? If I was going to rake leaves as a job, that'd be good, but I'm only going to rake leaves a couple of times in the fall. So that isn't a sustained activity. That's an occasional activity. What the body needs is a sustained activity. And so it's to you to figure out what is a sustained activity for you. Okay, on we go. So here's just one more chart of how this all works, but I wanted to point to the fact that up in the upper right-hand side there, it says better sleep and mood. So just think to yourself, do you want better sleep? Do you want to be in a better mood? Yes. So, and then over there on the left, we've got an improved complexion. Wouldn't it be great if you were, you know, instead of pinching your cheeks before you present yourself to someone, that you were just exercising on a regular basis, and you have like a, you know, you have that pinched cheek look. So here we go with this idea of how does a community raise its capacity to be more resilient in the face of both viral infection and chronic disease? Because they're really just two types of disease. Viral infection you get from someone, chronic disease you get from yourself. It comes from behaviors. And so the inflammatory effects of food and not exercising and not sleeping cause a lot of pain for people. And so, you know, just saying, as they say. So people who are inactive, stressed, and who neglect simple, inexpensive health behaviors are more at risk. And check out these people here. You know, I mean, it's obvious they're not doing any kind of a massive exercise. This is actually an example of a kind of Chinese type exercise that's a little like Tai Chi. And so for no cost, these people are getting together because they're having fun with each other. Our ambassadors from the school system You're already being paid by the school system to do the job that you have. So now you get to have the incredible opportunity to have that same job and be enabled with permission from your principal to do this kind of thing as a part of your job. I mean, that's like, wow, what kind of perk is that? So there are 4 dimensions of combining exercise and relaxation practice that I just wanted to mention to you, because it's just, most people think, well, exercise is a strain. And the answer is no, that's what you have thought that exercise is. There are a lot of kinds of exercise. Think about a math exercise. Think about a music exercise. There are lots of kinds of exercises that aren't a strain. And so under body practice, we already adjusted our posture. You saw those people doing some kind of very gentle movement with an exhalation, very likely. And that would be what we call a soft or gentle or quiescent type practice. Sitting still in a kind of meditation, that's still an exercise. And it's not just a mental exercise, because when you sit up straight, you're actually exercising the muscles of your core, which are pretty weak in most people. So we go from dynamic exercise, which is really going at it, like running and biking and swimming and hiking up mountains and so forth, all the way over to quiescent exercise, which is meditation. And then there's things in the middle like yoga and Tai Chi. And then any kind of exercise that's physical will increase the breath. But you can also increase the breath or change the breath because you want to. So you can do a kind of exercise when you're sitting at your computer where you just simply take a deep breath. Somebody just said a few minutes ago that they do this 6 times a day. That's amazing. And that person who's, for some reason I can't see you, so I'll just say, wow, that's great, thumbs up. And the amount of drugs that you don't have to buy or have paid for by your school system for your insurance that you are saving is amazing. So that's a contribution that you're making to your community. You might say, well, I got to do this because my neck locks up. But at the same time as you're managing to navigate how your neck locks up and learning more about and practicing more about how to release that, you're serving yourself, but you're also serving your community, and you're less likely to kill yourself taking pain drugs. Then the mind, learning how to practice focus, presence, intentfulness, and so forth, all very powerful. Guided internal. Somebody was saying earlier, when you start to panic, find things that you can see, things that you can touch, things that you can smell. Head to the refrigerator, get something that you can taste. Give yourself a little break. Change the subject. Learn how to talk to yourself in different ways. And then self-applied massage is very powerful, because what it does is that all these resources that we're generating through diet, hydration, exercise, and sleep, we want to send those resources, those healing resources, to the parts of our body that need it the most. And so doing some self-applied massage is a very, very powerful, and we're going to have a session on self-applied massage, and so I'll describe to you more about how to accomplish that. But just right now, you could take your right hand and put it over to your left shoulder, and I'll bet within 30 seconds you can find a really sore spot. So, this self-massage thing is pretty easy to do, and we'll talk more about it in another session. The effects of on the immune system of exercise, within 2 hours after even a very gentle practice like Tai Chi or yoga, there's an increase in white blood cells. A single session will increase the monocyte and lymphocyte numbers. There is also evidence that these practices strengthen the immune system and lower the incidence of respiratory infections, like, for instance, COVID virus. The state of the immune system, now this is really important. The state of the immune system is an indicator for the overall health resiliency of the individual. So having a healthy immune system means that everything else is healthy. And you could say that about the cardiovascular system. When the cardiovascular system is healthy, the whole person is healthy. You could say the same thing about the nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. When the when the person has what is called homeostatic capacity. Homeostatic capacity, that means the capacity to return to homeostasis, which is the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. When you are resilient enough to be able to exercise and return to normal, or sleep and return to normal, or eat a big meal and return to normal, climb a mountain and then recover. All of those signs of the nervous system's capacity to self-regulate all of the orchestration of the organs and everything that goes into making you more well and more efficient and more resilient. That resiliency means that the whole person, that is an indicator of the overall health resiliency of the entire individual. So if the brain is healthy, the whole is going to be more healthy. Is the cardiovascular is healthy, the whole is going to be more. The digestion is healthy, the whole is going to be. You see what I mean? So it's not just the immune system, it's any system that's well is an indicator of the fact that there's a higher quotient of overall resiliency for that individual. Wow, this is an amazing time to educate and empower yourself. Consider sharing this opportunity far and wide with friends, family, coworkers. Connect, and then feel free to connect with the ambassadors, is basically what that means. So I just want to remind you that it's something that we do every day. These are behaviors. They're not special activities. They don't require anything other than what we always do anyway, just to do it with more mindfulness and more thoroughness and more intentfulness. And the reason why I put this list of these words here is that I want to remind you that everything that we're talking about here can be described as healthy lifestyle, healthy living, disease prevention, health promotion, wellness, self-care, etc. So you get to choose, and you can use all these words at different times. Sometimes people say, well, you sure are saying, wellness. I'm tired of you saying wellness. Well, so take that in and think about saying healthy lifestyle or disease prevention. When you're around people who are at risk for chronic disease or who have a chronic disease, and you use the word disease prevention, that's going to get the attention of a person. You mean I could be preventing disease? I never heard of that before. I don't even want to do it. Some people say, I don't even want to do it. Sounds like too much work. Or other people would say, wow, I could be more well, I could be more sustainably well, I could be more clear-minded, I could make better decisions, I could have a higher level of productivity, I could be more gregarious and lead the fun instead of sitting in the corner and saying sorry, I have to pass. Yeah, so this is pretty exciting. So I said, let's practice. We already did taking a rest while you're awake. Lengthen your spine, deepen your breath, bring your attention to the present moment. You can do that in 10 seconds. And I think it's kind of cute, these kids sitting up on their desks. So, hey, teachers, push the desks together, put the kids up on the desks, have some fun, have some fun with it.
I love that picture.
Yeah, really cute. Okay, so now I'm going to try to figure out how to stop sharing, and I can't find there it is.
Perfect timing. That's awesome. We have just a few moments here. Does anyone feel inclined to talk about rest or movement or any of the sorts that stood out to them? Or how kids, I don't know, sleeping kids is so different than sleeping adults. And we know that those kids need more. And how can we promote better sleep within, during the day and that active rest? Maybe that'll help. But what do you guys are in it more than I am. What do you take away from this?
And as soon as 3 seconds pass, then you say, Christina or Lindsay. Otherwise, there's that, very pregnant pause that is kind of freaky to everybody. So just nail somebody within 3 to 4 seconds.
I love that.
I'll take.
I don't know, 35 years ago, I might have more hair.
You got some great hair, man.
Well, I know that sleep is huge for kids. We see that kids pretty much today don't seem to have bedtimes over weekends. It's the weekend, it's Friday, I don't have to get up tomorrow. So they think that they can stay up late and sleep in. And of course, Monday and sometimes on to Tuesday, they're still dragging and falling asleep during, your morning classes and such. And I try to tell them, you guys take away from your sleep. It takes time to re-energize and get your body back on track. If you stay up really late or don't go to bed until midnight, it could take your body 3 days to get back to normal. You've got to, you've got to take some kind of, we all have those splurges where we have fun, but you really have to take care of yourself throughout the weekend too. And I think it's particularly frustrating as a parent of a teenager who somehow has it in their heads that they don't need to sleep until 5 or 6 a.m. and then they can roll out and go to school at 8. And that stuff does not work for them. And I'm not sure how to reach to the teenagers. Maybe Hunter would have a better take on that one, but these kids they want to stay up all night.
I have a thought on this, and it's not a solution, unfortunately. But if we think about the people who lived in your town 50 years ago, and, these are like super self-reliant, or maybe it's 75, I don't know, 75 years ago, super self-reliant, salt of the earth, just the foundation of the fabric of the culture, and so just beautiful exemplars, and then they were all swept up into the war effort, and they produced at massive levels. But then the economy took off, and by the time those people who are my grandparents and your grandparents and our parents, by the time those people produced children and had a middle class and could invest in a piece of property, and all the stuff that's just collapsing right now, those kids, and even me, in the 1960s, I don't know, I was just like those characters that you're talking about, and I don't think we're going to really find a way to fix that if we don't somehow move the whole thing to an engaging game. And okay, so maybe the prize isn't like you get a gold medal or you get a lot of money, but the prize is that the fabric of the community is strong. And so we say we got to get to the kids, but the kids are all under the influence of the parents, and the parents are all, post 1960s, 70s, and 80s parents, and they don't know how to take care of children, and they don't know how to express a foundation of what is it? Is it the self-reliance thing? I know I'm just kind of like sounding lectury at this point. I think it's so sad, and I'm really doing my part to see what we can do about it by helping you to create such a program. And I just don't know. I think you're going to have to put your heads together in your community to see if you can figure out like how to make this into some kind of thrilling experience as opposed to a big bore. Okay. Period.
Well, with that, the industrial world coming about and society changing, you have your athletes. If you're an athlete and you're going out there for practice every day and you're pushing hard for a game and building yourself up, you get home, you're pretty exhausted. You want to rest. And I see that kids that are in those extracurricular programs seem to have more of a handle on their habits. And then there's kids who work hard. They have to go to work. If you're out bucking hay, of course you've got the same thing. You're exhausted. But I think when they're sitting in desks most of the day and then they come home to homework and there's nothing else to do, I think that's where we see this, where they get caught up in the digital generation of sedentary habits and they don't sleep well.
Yep. So Erica, so ask one other person to.
Okay, I'm gonna ask. Okay, Tim, what did you take away on the movement and the exercise portion?
So, for me, I'm going to go back to, and I hope this was part of it, but the breath practice, and that is something that I think we need to take the time to do with our students. I know when we put our social emotional curriculum in a year ago, there's a big component of that. And I just am skeptical that teachers are in fact using it and having their students go through it. And so I think we could really get some return on our equity if we just do that simple thing. And so that is, that's what really struck me is like, hey, this doesn't take much. It just takes a couple minutes and it can really hopefully produce, some outcomes that we're looking for.
I agree. Lindsay, did you have any thoughts? Uh-oh. I don't think I can hear her. Is your volume on, Lindsay? We can't hear you. Are you muted? Oh, it says connecting to audio. Oh, dang.
Yeah, now unmute.
There.
Yay!
Sorry, we all echo off of each
Oh,
other.
you're fine.
Mute on. All right. So what was the question?
Any takeaway? Just like anything that you would want to add to that?
Well, I missed that section that we got to do the
that's okay.
whole, I had to go take care of a student at another building. But I actually was doing deep breathing with that student. So
Good.
I think it's just relaxing and I just did some first lip breathing and just kind of doing that. So I just kind of did it with someone else.
Yeah, I'm sure you see a lot of opportunities when you work with your kids for that.
I think that just kind of helps and you just relax and you can just feel better and it helps.
Right. Dr. Yonke, she's one of the school nurses, right?
Yep.
Hunter, what about you? I want to give like one more minute before we wrap up.
The fitness part of it that we talked about, I actually put it in the chat. Kari was, I don't know if she was giving me crap or actually congratulating me about this whole thing, but he made a big point about our body makes drugs for us. We don't need all this healthcare, the free healthcare and everything that you had talked about, and that's exactly where I'm at with it. I mean, I have ADHD that I manage just by doing activity and going outside, and so stuff like that, forcing that, not forcing it, but kind of trying to push it towards our kids so they can realize stuff like that too is huge. I mean, I've had Christina's kids in my classes for multiple years, and the difference that it makes between them getting in there before they've had that personal development PE type thing, and then they get in there and they're physically active every day consistently, and their personality changes and their habits change and everything. Most of the time for the better. Sometimes kids use it as an excuse to do or get out of anything else they feel like, but the physical activity part of me is huge when it comes to mental health.
Oh, I'm so glad that you guys are all on board with this and you see how the benefits just can go full-fledged through these kids. So with that, I thank you so much for your time and your reflections, and Dr. Yonke, your time that it took to do this. It's just so powerful, and just to think about how your personal journey can, you know, maybe be enhanced or improved, and maybe you're thinking immediately about these kids and how we can just overall improve our lives as humans. So I think that's what it's all about. Next week we do not have class, so just be look for some emails. I feel like that might be the best way that I can kind of share little tidbits with you guys. If I think of something else or another platform that we could use, I'll let you know, but I like to throw in and keep us engaged, and I encourage you to take your focus area if you have one and reach out if you need any support or guidance or just want to talk to somebody. So I'm totally willing to offer that to you guys. And in the meantime, be well, go hydrate, and we will chat on our next session, which is on the 29th. So everybody,
Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, just one little bit of housekeeping duty. I think you're going to have to, before you sign off, return host to me so that I can stop the record.
I will do that. Thank you for that reminder. All right. Everybody else, you can pop off here.
Awesome. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
You guys,
Okay, this is so weird. It's like not letting me go back to you, Aaron.
we're good. We'll just keep it that way.
No, we gotta stop the recording. Why can't I do this? So I go to your name, Aaron, and it's like I can't, there's no option underneath of it anymore to like pull the host back to. Oh, that's because I bet Dr. Yonke, do you have the host?
I might be the host.
Oh, phew.
Good thing I couldn't figure out how to get out of here.
You're stuck.
Okay, now who needs to be host next?
Aaron.
Aaron, you are the host.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Woo.
Bye, everybody. Take
All
care.
right. Take
Bye.
care. Thank you again. Bye.
I'll see you later.
See ya.
Aren't they